questions for y'all. The first one, who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but if you're one of those people that have been trying to get information and you come across this, or even this. All right, take a listen.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Sister lailanasheeba, the Managing Director and Founder of Sunnahfollowers Online Islamic University. As you know, we have classes every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we cover everything from Aqidah, which is your belief system, to Seerah, which are the stories of the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the story of the companions. Please join us every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are broadcasting and streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, DLive, Trovo, and Twitch. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
And he scores! Dang. Wait, is that the Adhan? I think so, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, man.
Well,
gotta pray.
Yeah, we do gotta pray. We gotta pray. Let's get that in.
Yes, sir.
ASAP.
Ha ha!
I don't know what it is,
Akbar!
but what? You know, I've been listening to this program, Sunnahfollowers, and I've been learning a lot, Aki. Man, a lot.
Yeah, like what? What you been learning about?
Man, I've been learning about a lot. Salah, hadith, the life of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man. Wow, for real though. And you know another thing? The shows just keep coming on back to back. Alhamdulillah. I just gotta check them out. For real though. Wow. My God, if you have any questions, check this out. Every Friday, you can call in Sister Layla live. Call her with any one of your questions in regards to this deen, and man, she will answer them. She will get you right. Anyway, inshallah, I'm about to tune into that. But you know something else? If this is going to be a benefit to me, I got to get with that Sadaqah Jariyah. All right. Donate to SunnahFollowers.net. We're here for you. Sadaqah Jariyah. Assalamu alaikum.
She was a slave, born from Egypt and given to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, along with her sister by the governor of Alexandria. She would later give birth to the Prophet's son, who he named Ibrahim. Her name is Mariya the Copt. Join host lailanasheeba on the hit series Heroines of Islam every Monday and Wednesday 9 p.m. Eastern right here on Sunnahfollowers.
Okay, did I mess up Ifti? Is it on that Sunnahfollowers? Anybody know? I think I messed up. I see what I did wrong.
Yeah, it's not on there.
I waited too late to post it. Yeah, it's not going to show because I'll just do it tomorrow. I just read the thing. It's telling me that I have to only a certain amount of time.
That's okay.
Yeah, we can do it tomorrow. But I know how to do it though. So that's the thing. But what's this? Okay, hold on for a second. Make sure I got. Am I connected to all the groups on Facebook?
You're on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm on Sunnahfollowers.
Oh, you're on live now.
Yeah,
you're on the website now.
Yeah, I had to push that button to make it stream.
Oh, okay.
It's there. Okay, yeah, so there. Okay, good. Well, that's good. I fixed it. I recognized what the problem was, and alhamdulillah, I fixed it. That was quick. Okay, guys, let's get ready. Streaming on and by the way, guys, we're streaming on there are different platforms now. I'm also streaming live on my Sunnahfollowers website. Let me fix my hijab too. I just looked at myself. I threw this thing up because I'm cold. I need my hood on. Turn my heater on it. Oh, it's cold. Back to the hoods. I'll have my hood tomorrow. Inshallah. It's too cold, man. Okay, so, oh, God, it feels good, that heat. So, inshallah, guys, just to let you know, I'm streaming on my website, www.sunnahfollowers.net. If you want to join there on your cell phone, you can watch us live. It's connected to the YouTube channel, too. But the only thing is, I won't be able to see your typing. If you guys want to type or have something to say, you're going to have to join YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or DLive or Twitch. Okay, because that's just how it is. But you can watch it on your phone. And again, guys, before I start the lecture, please remember to support us, to scan that QR code and support us. We're desperately in need of donations to cover our website expenses. We're getting ready to move into the end of the month. And, you know, we have to start all over again on the 1st with paying our monthly bills, which total, what, $2,000? So please support us. And with that said, I think I'm going to get started. Oh, give me a second. My head hurts. Okay. Right, hold on. Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series entitled Heroines of Islam. And the reason why I'm teaching this series is because so many Muslims, new and old, always ask me about the role of women in Islam. And we're living in the days of fitna, whereas Islam has become strange. The Sunnah has become distorted. The Sunnah has become replaced with people's opinions or fatwa. And you will hear people say that Islam is an oppressive way of life against women. And none of this is true. And I really hope that you guys are learning this and seeing this when I'm doing the stories of these female companions. And I focused on the wives of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's always best to begin with them. And when we talk about the wives of the Prophet, there were 2 women that he had as slaves. And the one that I'm doing right now is Mariya the Copt. Mariya Coptia. Okay, she was from Upper Egypt. She was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the Muqawqis of Egypt as a gift, just like Hajar was given to Prophet Abraham as a gift. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved Mariya. Okay, he took her back to, she arrived in Medina and he accepted her as his right-hand possession. And the difference between a right-hand possession or a slave girl and your wife is that the man still has to take care of the slave girl. He still has to provide for her and maintain her. But the difference is, number one, he doesn't have to give her her own home. He doesn't have to give her her own home. And this is important because the simple fact that she doesn't have to have her own home, this is one of the reasons why some of the companions said that he married her. Okay, that's important. We're going to talk about that today. And also, not only does he not have to give a slave woman her own home, but he doesn't have to, she has no rights to the equality in time. In other words, he doesn't have to divide his time up amongst her like he has to do his wives. He can see her whenever he wants to see her. Okay. So that's the difference between us having a slave woman. And also we talked about the other day when we met, when also another rule came down after when Mariya radiallahu anha got pregnant with his son Ibrahim. He moved her to the plateaus of Medina. Okay, and he had a house erected for her there. After she had given birth to her son, That's when the prophet told her, you are now free. And this is when a new law came down from a law about slavery. Any woman that has a child by her master, when she gives birth to that child, she automatically is free. Now, do y'all see how slavery was abolished by the Muslims? The Muslims were the first people to abolish slavery. So any slave girl who has a child by her master, once she gives birth, not only is the child free, the children are not born slaves. They are born free, and the mother is automatically free too. And that's where that comes in, where some of the companions believe that after he freed her, he married her. Plus, she stayed in that house that he had built in that plateau. So that's why some of the companions said that he married her. But again, the others said he never married her. She was always just his right-hand possession. So we talked about how when she received the news that she was pregnant, how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was so happy because Mariya was his Hajar. And he used to tell her the story of Abraham and Hajar. She would ask him, oh, Muhammad, tell me about Hajar again, because Hajar was a Copt just like her. You know, she was from the original Egyptians too. That's what the Copts are. The Copts is a race of people, not a religion. They're a race. They are the descendants of the ancient Egyptians. They're the descendants of the pharaohs. Okay, so she would say, tell me about Hajar. Tell me about my sister. And then he would tell her about Hajar and Ibrahim alayhi salam. So when she told him that she was pregnant, you can imagine how the Prophet was so happy. He said, you really are my Hajar, you know. And of course, we talked about how jealous and depressed all the other wives were, especially Aisha, because Aisha was like, wow, if anyone were to bear him a child, why not me? Okay, but Allah chose Mariya, the slave girl, instead of Aisha or any other wife. Okay, so when the word got out that she was pregnant, to prevent her from being abused by his wives, the Prophet moved her. He moved her to the plateaus of Medina, and he had a home built for her there. And then she gave birth to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's son, and he named the son, it's no mystery, he named him Ibrahim, after Prophet Abraham alaihi salam. Okay, and he was so happy with his baby. And we talked about how Mariya was a devout mother. She was happy too. And one day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took his son Ibrahim to meet Aisha. He wanted Aisha to meet him. And when he entered Aisha's house, he said, look at my son, Aisha. Doesn't he look like me? Doesn't he look just like me? Aisha was so overcome with the pain of jealousy that she looked at him and said, he looks nothing like you. That son of that slave girl looks nothing like you. And that's when the Prophet realized that he had been insensitive, bringing him to meet Aisha. And Aisha says that she felt so guilty for saying that, because the Prophet never brought his son around her again after that. In fact, he didn't bring him around any of the other wives. Basically, he stayed out in the suburb of Aliyah, which is a suburb of Medina. He stayed out there with his mother, Mariya, basically. Because again, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was trying to keep down all this drama and tension that was going on with all his wives. Remember, he had just married Safiya, radiallahu anha. And Sophia was being abused by the other wives and the Muslims in general because she was Jewish and the people didn't trust her. And at the same time, he had just married Maymuna, okay? And he had also, right before marrying Maymuna, he had just took on Habiba had just come back. Habiba had finally come back to Arabia. So the prophet had his hands tied, dealing with all these wives, trying to keep them satisfied, in addition to doing the dawah, in addition to dealing with the drama of the Quraysh and all of that. He was a man. How he handled that, only a prophet could do that. Okay, and so we talked about that, and we talked about how the drama that happened, how again the slaves didn't have to have their own home. And so one day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam decided, to go to his home that he shared with Hafsa, and he knew Hafsa would not be there. He knew that Hafsa was going to be away. So he took Mariya with him to the home of Hafsa. But Hafsa came back unexpectedly. And we talked about how Hafsa was so angry to see him there and to see Mariya, because she was so jealous of her, that Hafsa began to yell and scream and cry. And so to calm her down, the Prophet Muhammad swore, he said, I swear by Allah that I will never touch Mariya again. She's from this moment on unlawful for me. And Hafsa was like, say it again, swear it again. And he sweared it. And then he made Hafsa promise him that she would keep this just between them and not tell Aisha and them. But as soon as the Prophet left, Hafsa ran and told Aisha that the Prophet had been there with Mariya, but she told her, but guess what? We don't have to worry about Mariya no more, because he swore an oath that he would never touch her again. And that's when Allah sent down the verses of the Quran saying that your wives, you cannot make unlawful what I made lawful for you, O Muhammad, just to appease your wives. And then that's when Allah let him know, I absolve you. I absolve you of that oath. You don't have to keep that oath anymore. And that's when Allah also reprimanded Aisha and Hafsa. He said, I can replace you all with better wives. I can replace you women with better, more righteous wives. Because understand, as long as y'all continue to hurt him, you make me angry. You make Jibreel angry and all the believers angry, because the Prophet was stressed out. He was at his max. He was dealing with the Quraysh, dealing with the hypocrites. And now this drama that Aisha and Hafsa concocted over their jealousy of Mariya, not to mention the other women. And Allah knew the Prophet was maxed out. He was stressed out. So that's when Allah sent those verses down, letting all the wives know that he can divorce them all. And that's when the Prophet has made an oath to not see his wives for 30 days. For a month. And the month is only 29 days. That's where that hadith comes from. All right, so we talked about that, and that's where we left off. And he had divorced Hafsa. The Prophet was so angry at Hafsa for playing him that way, because she really played him, got him to swear to something like that Allah absolved him of. So he was so angry, he had divorced Hafsa, but he took her back. Allah sent down verses of the Quran, telling the Prophet to take her back, and the Prophet took Hafsa back. So he took her back, but he divorced her. All right, so that's where we stopped off the last time we met. So what happened after that all that drama? Well, this is where we pick up. Let me share my screen. And this will be the conclusion of Mariya the Copt. So despite all the jealousies that those wives subjected him through, The joy of him being a father again to a little baby, it still quieted his pain somewhat. And remember, he had just lost his daughter Zainab. Remember, Zainab had died right before Mariya had gotten pregnant. So see all the fitna. Remember that hadith, who is tested the most? The prophets. Nobody experiences more or greater calamities and trials than the prophets do. It was just test after test after test. His daughter Zainab died. That was a test. Okay. That Hudaybiyah treaty was a test. Okay. Then he got to deal with the female drama, these hard, headstrong women. Test after test after test. But he did experience some joy with his baby boy. But that joy didn't last long. Remember, guys, Allah says he will test us over and over again. He'll give us a few moments, a little break, but he'll test us again. And so what was the next trial that came? Well, he was only able to enjoy Ibrahim for less than 2 years, because his son Ibrahim became sick before he was 2 years old. His mother, Mariya, was worried about him, and so was his aunt Serene. They both stayed by his side, nursing him night and day. But the light in the little child's eyes began to slowly fade. And this is why Aisha, radiallahu anha, says she felt so bad. Because it wasn't that long after she had said what she said out of jealousy, that the little boy died. In fact, she said she wished she could have taken that back, because he never brought Ibrahim around her again. And that's when she tells this story. This is all from Bukhari, where Aisha says not long after that, that's when the little baby died. So she didn't get to see him. It wasn't meant to see him again anyway. And that's why Aisha said she felt so bad for having said that when that baby looked exactly like the prophet. But she was so jealous. All she could think to say is, that child of a slave looks nothing like you. She said she regretted that because he died not long after that. Subhanallah. So when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the news that the little baby was sick, he came home and he took the little boy and put him on his lap, and tears began to drip down his cheeks. And he looked at the baby boy and he said, my son, there is nothing we can do when Allah decrees a thing. And he kissed the tiny baby. And then, holding himself together, he said, oh, Ibrahim, if there was not a real order and a true promise, and if those who came later were not to meet those who came before them, I would be sadder than I am right now. He said, I am sad that I'll be separated from you. He said, the eyes cry and the heart remains mournful. However, I cannot say anything that will anger my Lord. So here you can see the prophet knew his son was dying. And he wasn't even 2 years old yet. And the prophet was holding him on his lap, and he's letting him know, I know we're going to meet again. That's how the prophet was able to keep it together. You were given to me temporarily. He knew that his son Ibrahim would never live to see adulthood. He knew that. So he knew that Allah had only given to him for a short time. He just didn't know it'd be this short. He thought he'd at least live to see the age of 6 or 7. Okay. Here he wasn't even 2. He wasn't even finished suckling. He'd being suckled by his mother. So the prophet let him know, we'll meet again. If I didn't know any better, I would be sadder than I am now. He said, but my eyes tear, and you will always be in my heart. In other words, he was telling him that my heart will always miss you. And then the prophet looked at Mariya and he began to comfort her because she was trying to hold it together too. And after Ibrahim died, you know, he said, Ibrahim was my son. He died before he was finished being breastfed. But that's okay, because he will have 2 wet nurses in paradise that will help him to fulfill the time of breastfeeding. You know, so that's how we know he wasn't even 2 years old. And that's why Aisha felt so bad for what she said about him, you know. And Mariya, her baby, her little baby boy, that was hard for her, you know, to witness, you know, her little son dying. So after Ibrahim died, the wet nurse washed his body, and then they had the funeral procession. And after the funeral procession, they took him out of the house and placed him in his small little coffin thing. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam led the funeral. And after the funeral, they walked to the Baqi cemetery, and they dug a grave for him. And his grave was next to the grave of Uthman ibn Mazun. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed the little boy's body in the grave, and then he ordered that the dirt be spread over it and that water be sprinkled over the grave. And right after they sprinkle water on top of the grave, that's when the sun eclipsed. Remember that? All of this is in Bukhari. That's when the sun eclipsed. And when the sun eclipsed, some of the people said, oh my God, the sun is eclipsing because of the death of Ibrahim. Because this is a practice that the Arabs used to believe before Islam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed a 2 rakat eclipse prayer. That's when he did the eclipse prayer. And after the eclipse prayer, that's when he said, the sun and the moon are 2 of Allah's signs. They don't eclipse at the death or the birth of anyone. Whenever you see an eclipse, praise Allah. Go to the mosque and pray. So the eclipse prayer happened right after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam laid his infant son into the grave. Anas ibn Malik, he was one of the kids that used to hang around. He said, I have never seen anyone more merciful to the children as the Prophet was. Ibrahim was given to a wet nurse on the plateau of Medina, and we would go to that house with the Prophet to visit. And the foster father of Ibrahim's was a blacksmith. And that house always had a lot of smoke in it. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pick up the child, kiss him, and then leave. So as you can remember, Anas was the nephew of Maymuna. So that's how he got to see a lot of the things. And also Anas was the one who said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to make rounds with all his wives in one night. But he was a little boy. He was only 7. Aisha corrected him. She said, yes, he made rounds, but it was not sexual. Because some people read that authentic hadith in Bukhari that states that the Prophet used to make rounds with all his wives in one night. And he was a strong man, but that was told by Anas, who was only 6 or 7. Aisha explained that. She said the Prophet would make rounds and visit every wife before reclining for the night of whoever's turn it was. But he had a rule. His rule was he would never have sex on or with a wife if it was not her night. That didn't include the slaves. That didn't include Mariya. And that didn't include Rehana, his other slave. We're going to talk about her next week. Okay, the man can be with his slaves whenever. But that was a rule the Prophet had for his wives. I'm not going to sleep with another wife if it's not her night. Okay, but that don't mean I won't be with Mariya. A little joke. Okay, so that hadith, when you read that hadith about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam making rounds, Those were not sexual rounds. He would go and check on everybody. And Aisha said he never spent that long of a time. He just go in and see how you doing. Do you need anything? How's everybody? Is everybody okay? Then he would leave and go to the next house. He never stayed long. The one time he did stay long was with Zainab, Salama's daughter. He was teaching her the Quran. She was reciting the Quran for him. Okay. All right. So Mariya, radiallahu anha, she had great patience after her son's death. After Ibrahim died, she retreated to her home because, and this is where I told you, some of the people say that the prophet married her because she had her own home. Then other companions say, no, he never married her, but that was the home that, since all the other wives were jealous of her, she stayed on the plateau of Medina because of her beauty and the jealousy that Aisha had because she was the same age as Aisha. He kept her away from them, okay, on that plateau. So what happened is after Ibrahim died, she stayed in her house and she handled his death with dignity. The next year, that's when the prophet died. So as y'all can see, Mariya the Copt, she wasn't with him that long. Her little short time with the prophet was not that long. After her son died, she lost her husband, her beloved prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a year later. And guess what, guys? Even though Mariya was the same age as Aisha, she didn't live a long life. She died 5 years after the prophet. So y'all can see she was one of the first of the women to die. And even after his death, she stayed away from the other wives, and she was looked out. She was looked out after by Umar. Umar looked out after her as the caliph, and Abu Bakr checked on her a lot when he was the caliph too. So Mariya lived 5 years after the prophet's death, and she spent those years away from other people. But she was often seen visiting the grave of her son and the grave of the prophet. And she died in the 16th year after the migration during the month of Muharram. And Umar, radiallahu anhu, was the caliph, and he led the funeral prayer. And she too was buried in the Baqi cemetery. So now y'all see why some of the people say he married her. Because of that, she had her own house. Some of the people say after she gave birth to Ibrahim, she was freed and he married her. But then the others say he never married her. Okay. After the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, Mariya lived on the allowance that was given to her, like all the other from Beit al-Mal. And right before the prophet died, remember when we did the story of Sophia? Remember at the same time he got Mariya, he had just married Sophia. He was dealing with Mariya and also trying to protect Sophia from being abused by not just his wives. Sophia suffered, as Aisha said, she suffered more than anyone because she was Hebrew. All the Arabs used to treat her badly. They always thought that she was a spy. They could not accept that Sophia was a Muslim who converted to Islam and was sincere in her love. Right before when the prophet died, his last words were to take care of Sophia. Well, guess what? He not only mentioned Sophia before he died, but look how beautiful he was. He spoke of Mariya too. He said, look after the former Egyptians and take them under your care because we are now related to them. The former Egyptians are the Copts. The Copts, the ancient Egyptians. So right before the prophet died, he was on his deathbed. Not only did he tell the people to leave Sophia alone because no one loves him more than her. He also looked towards Mariya. Mariya was there too, guys. Mariya was there too when he was dying. And he looked at Mariya and he told the people, he said, take care of the ancient Egyptians because they're related to us. Their blood is us. She was a Copt. You know, the blood was intermingled from the pharaohs and the prophets. Okay. So look how he was able to think about everyone. He was considered of all his wives before he died. Okay. He also recommended that the people make dua for Mariya's tribe and pray that her tribe be blessed. This was all before he died, when he was on that deathbed. And we have another hadith that when Hassan, radiallahu anhu, Hassan, the grandson of the prophet, when Hassan was later holding peace talks with Muawiyah, this is when the Muslims had the fitna, he asked that taxes not be imposed to the people of Hathan village, because that's where his brother Ibrahim's uncles lived. In other words, that's where Mariya's family lived in Egypt. Also, in another hadith, Ubadah ibn Samit, when he came to Egypt after the conquest and asked about the village of Mariya, he found Mariya's old house and had a mosque built there. And this picture, this is a picture of the mosque that is still there. This is the mosque that Ubadah ibn Samit built in the village that Mariya the Copt was from. This is the mosque today. This is how it looks today if you go there. Okay? So when you read that verse about the ancient Egyptians, that's in reference to Mariya. The prophet said, look after them and take them under your care because we are related to them. And that is why I tell y'all, Egyptians, we are Arabs. We are Arabs. The ancient Egyptians, like I told you, were from the original Arabs. They were the descendants of the three tribes of Saba. Saba-Ur, which is the tribe my father's people is from. Where did they migrate to? They were from Yemen. They went to Lebanon, and then they crossed the ocean to Egypt. Those are the Copts, what they call the Copts. And that's why the prophet said, be careful, understand that the Egyptians, we're the same. We're Arab. Those are the original Arabs. What was Pharaoh? What were the pharaohs? They were Arabs, the original Arabs. From the tribe of Saba, the tribes of Bilqis. Y'all get it? And that's why they don't, to this day, they don't equate the Egyptians to being anything but Arab, because they are. We're related. Y'all understand? You will never understand this religion till you learn these hadiths. The hadiths are not just the sayings of the prophet. It's the history. The hadiths give us the details, the history of our religion and our people. Subhanallah. All right. So there's many lessons that we can learn from Mariya. Sometimes destiny will lead a people to adopt great roles in life. And most of the time, not by our own choosing. That's what happened with Mariya. She was just a simple, normal woman living in an Egyptian village. She became a slave in the palace and then was taken as a servant. And from there, the Muqawqis decided to send her to the Prophet Muhammad in Medina. She was a person who had inner beauty as well as physical beauty. She was trained to service her master. So she was trained to service a man. And she brought the prophet happiness. in those few short years before he died. Not only did she bring him happiness by servicing him, but also she gave him a child so he can experience that again in his old age. All right? And by the way, this is a picture of the ruins of that house in that plateau in Medina. These are the ruins of the house. It's called the house of Ibrahim. The house of Ibrahim where he was born. These are the ruins. I found this on the internet. This is where it is now in Medina. Y'all see that? It's the ruins. So this is a house that she lived in, and that's the plateau. The plateau out in the desert. They left this untouched. Those are the ruins. It's her house. And Mariya, radiallahu anha, she did not see Ibrahim's birth as something she accomplished. She looked at it as a gift from Allah. Because remember, that's when Allah sent those verses down. When he took the soul of Ibrahim, that's when Allah sent those verses down saying that your children don't belong to you. They're just temporary loans given to you as a way of testing you. And she passed the test because she bore his death with dignity. Remember, I tell you guys, as Muslims, we're supposed to be people of dignity. And by the way, this is another picture of a Coptic woman. This is a real live Coptic woman. And she's decorated the way the ancient Pharaoh women used to dress. The headgear, look at the eyebrows, the dark eyebrows like lailanasheeba's, the eyes like lailanasheeba, those Asian looking eyes, okay, full lips, keener nose. Copts, their hair is straighter, less curly, it's that the wavy more, okay? A lot of Muslim women complain about how they don't have any children. We need to understand that our children don't belong to us. They're just a trust. They can be a blessing or a curse, depending on how you raise them. And also we learn from Mariya that when we grieve, understand that what leaves us today, if we end up with a good ending, we'll be reunited with them in paradise. All those hadiths that speak about what happens when a child dies, the Prophet told us all that after the death of Ibrahim. The children, they're little green birds. The children will be in paradise on the day of judgment. Any child that died before the age of puberty, on the day of judgment, that child will come to you and take you by the hand. And that child will plead to Allah, "Oh Allah, allow my father. Oh Allah, allow my mother to join me in paradise." That child will be an intercessor for you. That's what that hadith means. Your children that die before the age of puberty will be an intercessor for you on the day of judgment. You guys get that? And so these hadiths, when the Prophet told Mariya these things, they comforted her. She was able to accept, the death of her child with dignity, knowing that she'd be with him again. She'd see him again in paradise. Okay? Also, the life of Mariya is an example of a woman who was married in a foreign country. The Prophet showed great interest in her. He used to make her feel comfortable by telling her over and over again the story of Hajar, because Hajar was someone she could relate to. She was an Egyptian Copt just like her. Okay? And that shows how a man, if you marry a wife from a different country, try to make her feel at home. Understand she's going to be lonely. Understand she's going to miss her family. Okay? You should become her friend. Be attentive to her. So we learn from her story how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam found a commonality between them, like he did with the story of Hajar and Ibrahim. And this is another picture of a Coptic woman. And this is how I imagine her looking. From the description of Aisha, Aisha said Mariya was very white in color, and she had long, beautiful, curly, wavy hair, like this woman has, that long, wavy hair. Beautiful eyes. Those Egyptian eyes. Thick, dark eyebrows. So I imagine her looking like this, except lighter in color. Okay? So basically, guys, that's the story of Mariya, radiallahu anha. Okay? And a lot to learn from her. She stayed to herself. A lot of people ask me, did she hang out with Aisha after that? No. She stayed out there in the plateau. She separated herself from the other wives. But Aisha apologized to her. Just to let you guys know, Aisha went to her and begged her forgiveness for all the things she said about her. And she hugged her, she kissed her, and she apologized for all the horrible things she said about her son. Aisha did make up, and so did Hafsa. Hafsa went to her, and after the Prophet died, just let you guys know, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, all these women became good friends. They all made up with each other. Aisha became extremely protective of Safiya because Safiya was treated worse than anybody, okay? But with Mariya, she apologized to her, but Mariya retreated. She went back to that house that was built for her and Ibrahim. She stayed in that suburb away from them. Just close with her sister. She was really close with her sister and her sister's children. Because her sister, I'm going to do her story too. Her sister ended up marrying the man that took her as a slave. He married her. And I'm going to do their story too. All right. So that's the story of Mariya. Next week, inshallah, I'm going to do the story of Rayhana. Rayhana was another slave girl. She was another slave girl that the Prophet had. He got her when he got Safiya. He had her before Mariya. And a lot of people say he married her. He did not marry her either. She was a slave girl too. And I'm going to talk about her. And she was Hebrew. She was Hebrew like Safiya. But she converted to Islam. When I say Hebrew, I mean race. I'm not talking about religion. Just like Copt. A Copt is a race, not a religion. Hebrew is a race, not a religion. Safiya was Muslim when the Prophet married her. Mariya was Muslim when the Prophet took her as a slave. And Rayhana was Muslim too. But what race was Rayhana? Hebrew. What race was Mariya? Copt. What race was Safiya? Hebrew. Y'all understand now? So these words are race. They're not religions. We've made them religions today, but they're originally races of people. All right. Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? All right. I'm going to stop right here for tonight. Inshallah, make sure everybody's here for the classes tomorrow. The 6 o'clock class. MashaAllah, the 6 o'clock class, we're going to do chapter 17. Chapter 17 of the book, Diluting Wala Well Better. Make sure you guys read the first part. And then also tomorrow night, we have the Hadith class at 9. So I want to thank everybody for joining and participating. Inshallah, I'll look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.